person that scared me, legit, Baron von Raschke, you remember him? So Baron von Raschke looked like a combination or a cross between a Martian and Freddy Krueger.
And it was just all of a sudden a kick in the face, and just I see a tooth go flying. So it was very brutal. I mean, I think Jeff said, like, Jesus, is this WWE or UFC? What am I doing right now? I've never in my life seen my brother hit someone as hard. And it's funny because he was just starting, and Paul Heyman said, like, you have to be strong, stay on your feet. And he kept saying, you gotta hit me hard with that chair, you gotta hit me hard. And eventually Jeff's like, okay, I will. and he did. It sounded like 2 gun blasts.
The night's young, it has just begun, as she puts her hand in mine. We wanna chase the night, wanna dance to the light, pull the stars from the sky, just 2 hearts running wild. Never sleep, never stop, as we shout from the top. We're gonna be 2 hearts running wild.
Oh!
Ladies, you got it?
Ladies and gentlemen, Jeff and Matt Hardy.
But come on, y'all, make some noise. Jeff Hardy! And Matt Hardy! Kane!
Okay, so it's like kind of a 2-part question. So,
I'll let her give 2. She's cute. She broke the rules already.
okay, so the first part, I just want to tell you that I wrestle the boys down at my school all the time, and I always win. And do you have any wrestling tips?
Well, I would say my biggest tip, as far as pro wrestling goes, I think you're speaking of a little more amateur collegiate style wrestling. My biggest tip would be make it a lifestyle if you're trying to be a pro wrestler, and be as authentic as possible. I think authenticity helps.
So what you have to do is you have to get your eyes real narrow like a snake. Right? And you just have to have that attitude. You just got to go in and tear them up, all right? Okay. Thank you. Good questions.
Yeah, I'm with the authenticity too, but honestly, man, I don't even think I know how to wrestle. I'm more of a stunt man. When it all comes down to it, the moments.
Yeah. I'm an entertainer, y'all, so.
All right, over here, sir. Gentlemen.
Kane, what was it like working on See No Evil?
Yeah, See No Evil was a lot of fun. Of course, we did 2 movies. The first one was filmed in Australia. I think that was 2003, and then later in Vancouver. And the second time, the first movie I worked with Gregory Dark, who's the director. The second time was with the Saska twins, who were just amazing. So it was a lot of fun. Obviously, it's quite a bit different from the live aspect of WWE. So, but it was really cool to, I guess, to see the movie magic, and to go in and to do some of the stunts and some of the the effects, and then be able to come back and see it. And it doesn't look like that when you're doing it, right? And then you go back and see it, and after they've edited it, and in some cases added CGI and that sort of stuff, it's like, wow, that's really cool. So it was a lot of fun, but I still think WWE was more fun because of the interaction with the fans and just the kind of live aspect of it.
Got a question over here?
Which championship meant the most to y'all?
I would probably say for myself and my brother, speaking from my perspective, it was our dream to be the tag team champions of the world one time. So the very first time in 1999, when myself and Jeff upset Ron Simmons and JBL, the Acolytes, the APA, that was like us achieving the dream. So that was probably the most significant and important title win of our careers, from my perspective.
Yeah, I would agree with that too, because the first time we won the World Tag Team titles, we were in Fayetteville, North Carolina, which is the closest arena to our house, so that was just a little boy's dream come true, you know, and that was just, oh my God, such a special moment.
Yeah, for me, it would have been my first world championship that I won against Stone Cold Steve Austin, the King of the Ring. Unfortunately, that was the same night that Mick Foley got thrown off the top of the steel cage. I don't remember the first championship. That's pretty cool. And then also, I am like the only mayor to have won a WWE title. When I beat our 24/7 championship, of course, I lost like 20 minutes later. But,
All right here in the front row.
What's your guys' favorite tag team match?
Without a doubt, mine is the first ever tag team ladder match with Edge and Christian.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of matches that we, revere and we love so much, but that's the match that put us on the map. It really made myself and my brother and Edge and Christian all stars in that single night. So that was really special. Another match that stands out is TLC 2, which a lot of people regard as one of the greatest WrestleMania matches ever. We got to go out and innovate these things with tables, ladders, and chairs, and we got to create some of our own magic. And it's cool that we were the pioneers of the TLC staple, which will now forever be around in pro wrestling.
yeah, there's no doubt that these guys set a standard for tag team performances. It's just, people are still trying to live up to. For me, it's really about my partners, and I was fortunate to have so many great partners. My favorite was Undertaker, obviously. But then Daniel Bryan and the Team Hell No stuff was a lot of fun for me as well.
Got a question over here.
What is the most painful move you guys have delivered?
The most painful move that you've delivered.
For me, it would be when I somehow foolishly gave Edge a leg drop off the top of the cage.
Yeah!
And I think that ended up being a lot more painful for me than it was for him.
Probably like the choke slams you'd see on TV, because if we were working an event and the cameras weren't on, obviously you didn't do it quite as hard. On TV, it was pretty right there. So it was, some of those choke slams when you see the guys get really high in the air and get slammed down, that was no joke.
All I'm thinking about is just a single kick from Sheamus. In one match was the worst thing that ever, and it knocked my front tooth completely out. You could see it fall, and it was just watching it back was kind of disturbing.
Yeah, it was brutal, and funny that you say that, because it was like in a position in the match that did not mean anything. It was just, they had jumped down and they were beating him up. He was in trouble, he needed to make a tag, and it was just all of a sudden a kick in the face, and just I see a tooth go flying across the room. So it was very brutal. I mean, I think Jeff said, like, Jesus, is this WWE or UFC? What am I doing right now?
I still worry about that tooth, because I'd already scheduled an appointment to get an implant there, but my tooth was broke off at the gum line. So after I scheduled the appointment, later that evening my dentist called and said, I think I can save it. Can you come in tomorrow? And sure enough, he got a post up in there. So I'm waiting for that thing to break. But it's been, like 8 or 9 years since then. So I'm still hoping it stays for a few more.
Okay, all the way in the back here, guys.
Who is your favorite person to work with?
So again, for me, obviously Undertaker, because of our storyline and just all of those things. But I was really fortunate, and Matt and Jeff were too, to just have so many tremendous opponents. I mean, when I look down the people that I wrestled against, it's literally just Hall of Famer, right? Triple H, John Cena, The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Randy Orton, who will be in the Hall of Fame. So it's really hard to say who my favorite was. because I was just really fortunate to be there for a long time and have so many great opponents.
I was going to say, Jeff and I typically, I think, probably our most famous opponents and two of the people we had the most chemistry with would be Edge and Christian. We both had great matches with them. We wrestled those guys, kind of seems like thousands of times. I had great singles matches both with Christian and Edge as well. A lot of stuff I like. I love working with Rey Mysterio. He's one of the most amazing guys I ever get the opportunity to work with. We get to work a whole lot. I was very blessed to work with him. I loved working with Jeff. It was one of our dreams as kids to have a marquee match at WrestleMania, and we got to do that at WrestleMania 25 in an Extreme Rules match, which was great. MVP is someone that I like working with a lot because we did something that was very different and a lot of people were doing. And it's been a blast. I also, myself and Jeff, were also big fans of the Young Bucks too. I like working with the Young Bucks as well.
Yeah, for sure. Working with Matt was always great. Edge and Christian naturally, and the Dudleys. But honestly, my favorite singles feud was with Umaga, man. He was incredible. And I still, in my daily prayers, I still say what's up to Umaga and thank him for the inspiration and the friendship and all that good stuff. So, yeah, that was great.
Got a question here?
Out of all the companies y'all worked for, which one would you say taught you the best life lesson?
Yeah, that is. That's a pretty deep question. I almost feel like just kind of learning the way the wrestling business works and kind of the etiquette behind it. I just feel like, especially because we came in and obviously Glenn Kane was in before we were, but we came in the early to mid 90s doing extra work, enhancement work, just trying to get a spot. We got signed in the late 90s. So it was still kind of the wild, wild west when we first came in. So there was there was still hazing going on. They would test guys, make sure you go into the locker rooms. So I just think the whole process of working in the pro wrestling business makes you think about things in different ways, and I think you learn to be respectful in a different way, and you learn to be appreciative and grateful of those who have come before you and who have paved the roads that allowed you to walk down them and whatnot. I feel like it, more than anything, just being in the pro wrestling business kind of teaches you respect in a different way.
I'm so stubborn and set in my ways. WWE offered rehab to me 3 different times over a course of 20-some years, and but I've been now twice, so I'm on the other side of that now. Last time I did a Q&A with Jim Ross and the King, I said the same kind of thing, and Jim Ross said, "I tried to tell you." I tried to get you to go. Yeah, thank y'all for that applause.
Okay, we have a question right back here.
Wait, I didn't get to answer. I
Mr. Mayor,
have a great answer.
So sorry.
I'm trying to turn my mic on and off, and it's not working very well for me. Echoing what Matt said, I came in kind of at the end of the territories, so I still got to experience that a little bit. My first kind of gig was with USWA, working with Jerry Lawler and those folks over in West Tennessee. Then I went to Puerto Rico for not quite a year with Carlos Colon, and then came to Smoky Mountain Wrestling, which is in this area with Jim Cornette, and then went to WWE after that. So I spent 3 or 4 years doing those, and then you get to WWE, and you so many people never get to that level, and it's really hard. The wrestling business overall is not as glamorous as people think it is. I remember one time Undertaker and I were traveling from St. Louis, Missouri to Kansas City, Missouri. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. We stopped in at a truck stop in Jefferson City, Missouri. It's Greasy Spoon, and Mark just looks at me. He's like, "Oh, the glamour, right?" And it is. It's hard work, but it's really hard work when you're first starting out. You're not making any money. You're traveling all the time. When I was in Puerto Rico, obviously you're that far away from home. So when I got to WWE, I didn't take that for granted, that I was there and that was the big leagues, just because of the things that I'd been through to get there. Is that a good question? A good answer?
Yeah.
By the way, I actually got the privilege to wrestle the Unabomber in Smokey Mountain Wrestling.
You did?
All right, back here now.
This one is more of a Mayor Jacobs specific question.
Oh, no politics, please. I'm trying
Was
to
it
get away from
harder to transition in government as what you thought it might be? Because from what I understand, you're doing a killer job in Knox County.
Oh, thank you. It's actually not as different as people think that it is. And what I mean by that is when people are like, oh, politics and wrestling, you know, two very divergent things. I'm like, actually, if you've ever been in a wrestling locker room, you realize how much politics is involved there as well. So it's not. They're not that much different. I think the same things that makes you successful in one makes you successful in the other. Just like these guys, you know, it's just being part of a team. You know, in wrestling, that's understanding you have to make your opponent look good. You have to work together. A lot of that translates to government politics as well. So it's not as different as people might think it is. But thank you for the compliment.
Dead air.
I got a question over here.
What's the hardest opponent you had?
That's a great question. So, The Undertaker was, you know, he was something else, right? Then you have like Big Show, and that was always hard for me because Big Show was so big, bigger than me. So normally I'm the guy that can just throw someone around, and I'm the guy getting thrown around. And then you have like Braun Strowman, because he was so big and strong as well, and he was pretty neat. And then you have like Brock Lesnar. Yeah, that's like the epitome of the guy that's gonna rip your limb for him. You guys beat him up pretty good though.
Yeah, no, I was going to say Brock Lesnar as well. It's so funny because there's this clip, and I see it all the time. There's two chair shots, back when you could do chair shots to the head, that we give Brock Lesnar, and I have never in my life seen my brother hit someone as hard as he hit Brock Lesnar. And it's funny because he was just starting, and Paul Heyman said, like, you know, you have to be strong, stay on your feet. And he kept saying, you gotta hit me hard with that chair, you gotta hit me hard. And eventually Jeff's like, okay, I will. and he did. It sounded like two gun blasts. But Brock Lesnar is a guy that we both got to work with quite a bit, and you could just feel how real of an athlete he was when you were in the ring with him. He is probably the most scary opponent, you know, and he's probably, you know, physically the most gifted in many ways that I've ever been in the ring with. It's one of those things where I'm like, this is the last guy I would like to have legitimately wanting to kill me, because he can kill you in an instant, you know. So he was a super explosive, talented guy. And he was probably the roughest and toughest opponent I've ever been in the ring with.
Yeah, we used to do that to each other so much back then. It was crazy. The hardest chair shot I ever took was in Sylvan, North Carolina, at the little place we used to do the hardcore. It was, oh man, unbelievable. But yeah, the chair shot that Brock Lesnar just echoed through that building. Oh my God, what a moment.
They almost had they trimmed down the Royal Rumble table match we had with the Dudleys in Madison Square Garden because there was like 9 unprotected chair shots. And like with the Dudleys in there, it was almost like, especially with Bubba, because Bubba was very like old school, like, okay, well, if you're doing this, you can't put your hands up, you're gonna get rubber. So like we're in there murdering each other with these unprotected chair shots. And it's funny, they trimmed all those out of the match, which is wild. And the match has changed so much, it had so much time on it. But it is what it is, and luckily we've learned a lot about how damaging that can be, and things has changed. And the culture of pro wrestling in general has got to change, which has been a net positive for everyone.
All right, over here.
Okay, this is like a two-part question. I know.
I'm
I know, I'm so full.
So much time.
But this one is specifically for Matt. Like, how do you feel about, like, you know, Revy and Gothic Baby and, you know, bringing your family into your wrestling part, and, you know, just having your family together? Like, obviously, you know, you've wrestled with Jeff basically your entire career, but, you know, Revy, your kids, you know, how did you think to add them together? How did you think to add the
the two worlds together?
Well, the Rebbe thing kind of happened very organically because she had delved in wrestling a little bit, and like when we were first together, like they needed another girl at TNA, and she did a couple things for them, and then like once I started doing the whole broken mat thing, I mean it was pretty far out there, and the more different and unique and interesting I could make it, I tried to. I really wanted to be totally opposite of what the standard Matt Hardy from the Hardy Boys was. So my wife started with that, and then our son was born, and we just said like let's put him in the gig, and that way we'll travel together and he can be there, so it's a lot easier. And now I think it's at a point where whenever someone comes like to the Hardy compound, like I'll be honest, my three oldest boys, Max was about to be 10, which is wild because I remember him as a baby. He was participating in wrestling when he was 0 years old. But now, he's 9, Wolfie is 7, and Barty's 5, and they're like all politicking for more TV time the next time they come and shoot the Hardy compound. Already, it's crazy. It's like in their blood. And they want to come out to cons, and they're always trying to hustle and do things. I think they've just been around this life for so long, kind of like the whole wrestling vibe in many ways. But I enjoy doing it because I can tell they legitimately have fun. And if they don't want to do it, I wouldn't ask them to do it. It's just like, if you guys want to do it, you can. And they all have. And I think it's just been also very beneficial for my wife, Rebby, and Gothic Baby with the branding, because once again, it gives her some more promotion. Because my wife did an incredible job just establishing Gothic Baby on her own, like on TikTok, and that went viral when she was telling stories doing that. So it's just been kind of like a natural fit. And it's one of those things like Jeff's kids, they're not really interested in wrestling. Mine still do. Maybe they won't be as they get older because, they all kind of want to do 5 or 6 different things right now. But like, if they want to be a part of it, I enjoy doing it, and I'm happy to participate with them. It makes for good memories anyway, looking back at it.
Also, this is just purely wrestling related. Who was your hardest feud to work with? Just hardest, not the person themselves, just the feud.
The hardest feud to work with. You know what? I might say something that was the hardest, like back in 2001 when they wanted to split myself and Jeff up, and they started down that path, and I don't think either one of us were ready to do it, especially me, because I thought we still had so much more we could do as a tag team, and I'm glad we stayed together, and we ended up doing that. There was a point where someone that that we worked with, obviously Lita, like they wanted Jeff to like kiss her. That was probably the most difficult feud, because there was a lot of things that we felt uncomfortable with at that time because of like our real life. Like I don't think we were ready. But by the time we got down the road, like 2009, and we did the thing where I turned and they said I blew him up in fireworks and burned his house down, all the stuff that they pinned on me. We were comfortable doing it at that time, and we were good with doing it. When we split, we did Broken Mat and a feud with Jeff and Front Alicia and Brother Nero. We were good with doing all that. But I would probably say the first time they wanted to push us to work one another, and I don't think neither one of us were ready. I certainly was not ready for it. I think that was probably one of the more difficult feuds and time I dealt with a program with wrestling.
I'll go with JBL and his clothesline. When I was very young, I kind of feared it, but it taught me to react, really well, really quick. But the Acolytes, that feud, we were still so young.
Oh my God, yeah. And after we won the titles from those guys, and we were working them on house shows, live events, right? We'd work them, 3 or 4 times a week. And after 2 weeks of that, they beat us up so bad. I was like, dude, you guys can have the titles back. Like our names, that's okay. We don't want to get beat up anymore. So they made us earn it, no doubt.
Next question here.
Growing up in wrestling, I look at Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan, and a lot of these younger people today look to you guys as role models. Growing up, who would you say was your role model in the wrestling world?
Yeah, for me, I was around that same time actually. Now, we didn't have, when I was a little kid, we didn't have cable TV. So I would watch All-Star Wrestling out of Kansas City. I grew up in Northeast Missouri. And that had people like Bulldog Bob Brown and Ray Candy. Harley Race was there, not that much, but occasionally. Then, about once a month, I'd go down my family would go down to my grandmother's in St. Louis, and they had wrestling at the Chase, which was the biggest show in the country. So then you got to see everybody, like, the Von Erichs and, Flair a little later. The person that scared me, like legit, Baron von Raschke, you remember him? So Baron von Raschke looked like a combination or a cross between a Martian and Freddy Krueger. and he portrayed, and this is not that long after World War II, he portrayed like a Nazi, a character, right? And he had this, the claw. And so he was doing this promo, like, they asked him a question, how are you going to go through so much? I was like, the claw. I had to turn the TV off, I got so scared. But then a little later, like Hogan, when I was in high school and college, Hogan, Undertaker's going to hate this, but he was kind of there too as well. So.
My favorite guy, the guy who I think got me hooked, and I was a big fan, especially when he won the WWE World Title at WrestleMania 4, Macho Man, Randy Savage. He was probably the guy I looked to, like, he's my first all-time favorite in pro wrestling. I was very inspired by his stuff.
Yeah, I gotta go with HBK, man. I think it mainly was after the Razor Ramon, Shawn Michaels ladder match. That kind of changed my whole outlook on pro wrestling. But then, man, fast forwards a little bit, like when Rey Mysterio Psychosis was in the original ECW, that really got me fired up. And naturally, Sabu was the first guy I ever saw go through a table. So, man, what he did for the business is just otherworldly. So, yeah, HBK is my guy overall.
All right, we have time only for one more, guys. I'm so sorry, but make sure you buy your tickets for the Hardy Experience tonight. Go on the website, SmokeyMountain.com, get your tickets. There's only a few seats left. Last question.
Last one. I gotta say, last night I was at SmackDown, and I had to ask the Hardys, I didn't see one submission of it, but what I did see was the leg drop from the middle rope. I seen a twist of fate. I seen a swanton. What I'm saying is, how does it feel like your fingerprints being all over wrestling, how the pacing of the matches have changed, and how you strongly influence that? And for Kane, I'm from Knoxville. We all love you. You got to stay in the office forever. Please never leave us.
I love that. So there was a twist of fate last night?
Yes.
Who did that?
It was a main event taping. I didn't know the guy. He did the twist of fate, and then Fatu did the swanton, and then one of the other matches they did the leg drop.
Was it Ethan Page?
Yes.
It was? Oh, he was there? Okay, doing some main event. Cool. Nothing sacred anymore, yes. That is cool that, our influences bled into the next generation and whatnot. So that is really cool. I feel like, I was just talking about this the other day. I did my podcast on which I will be doing a version of the podcast tonight, talking about our return to WrestleMania 33. So I hope to see you guys here at the Hard Part. But I was just talking about JR when he first signed us, and someone, my host, asked me, well, what do you think he saw in me, Jeff, whatever. I said, I think JR realized that the business was going to be different. You could still be big, or you could look like this amazing rock star, but the match had to be a little more athletic, a little more acrobatic, because it wasn't like two big lumbering guys as things changed following through with the Attitude Era, right? And I feel like Jeff and I, we had the opportunity with Edge and Christian with the Dudleys, and we kind of did have matches that were a little more exciting, a little more fast-paced, but I think we all learned to be pretty good storytellers as well. So I think it's cool that things have changed a little bit as far as the pace and the way things go. I think there's some places that take things way too far and do way too much nowadays when it comes to the pace of a match and what you're doing in the match. Because at the end of the day, pro wrestling really isn't even about just the pro wrestling. It's about the moments that you create in that match. You know what I mean? You can have a match, but it's the moments that are much more important than the moves. So it's learning how to program those things and put those things in order and in a fashion that they can get people emotionally invested in what they're watching. And I feel like we ended up being pretty good doing that as time went on. So that is cool that you even mentioned. It seems like you guys have influenced that to a degree, and if we have, then that's very cool.
Yeah, Kevin Owens is always doing a swanton bomb. Too, but one cool thing about Kevin Owens, you got to work with him a lot in Ring of Honor, right? And I never got to work with him, but when I did leave this last time, I got a text from him, and he said, "Oh man, I wish I would have got to work with you." So that really hit my heart, man. I was like, "Oh my God, that's amazing, because he's such a superpower as well in pro wrestling." So, but who knows, man? Anything's possible in pro wrestling, so it might not be too late for that match to happen.
Yeah. You know, too, I just want to say, Jeff, the last time I watched Raw, someone did the Swanton, it was on Raw, and they just, they're Swanton Bomb. You know, they called it too, so it's like that, you know, eternally now.
Well, that's all the time we have. Is there anything else?
I will say this real quick. I want to thank Matt and Jeff, because those of y'all don't realize it. I started out in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and they gave me the first time opportunity to MC and pre-MC some of their shows with Omega Wrestling. I thank y'all for that opportunity, because it's opened other doors, and I really appreciate them and Kane as well, because it's a lot of respect from everybody.